Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Everything Went Black podcast. Welcome back, Scott Hamilton, bassist of the great band Ken Mode. Scott and I talk about this year's Toronto Film Festival and a lot of the new upcoming genre films are about to be unleashed on the public. It's always good to catch up with Scott. If you're listening to this podcast, please, if you haven't done so already, check out the other podcasts brought to you by an elite gang of content creators known as the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. Kicking things off every other Monday, we've got Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. Brandon and I, as well as being in a band together known as Abraxas Horn, are also doing a collaboration called The Black Lodge, where we explore episodes of Twin Peaks. So check that out. It's going to be ongoing for many years, actually. There's a ton of stuff to cover on there. And every other month, we switch which podcast hosts the episode. Tuesday, Jackie Smith brings us into the Necrosphere, the greatest extreme music podcast in the land. Wednesday is a day of double shots. We've got Everything Went Black, this podcast you're listening to right now, as well as Iblis Manifestations. Thursday is another double shot day, as well as being Necro Thursday, where we launch the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. We also have day one of Soul Knocks, brought to you by Carl Hikara. Friday, Spitball Media brings us an irreverent pop culture extravaganza. Saturday, well, is a day off. It's officially autumn, my favorite time of the year. So go out, enjoy yourselves, make some memories. Halloween is around the corner. Speaking of Halloween, Carl Hikara returns with day 2 of Soul Knocks for all things macabre, sinister, that sort of thing. Carl and I are doing a collaboration known as Darkness Weaves, and we are entering the twilight of that collaboration. We're covering the work of Karl Edward Wagner, focusing on his hero, Cain. And I use the word hero in quotations because he's more of a villain, if you ask me. We've got other stuff in store for you guys once we wrap up the Wagner Darkness Weaves collaboration, so stay tuned. If you support the show, thank you very much for listening. It means a lot to me. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I look forward to each and every episode. If you want to support the show further, you can join the Everything Went Black Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to bonus content, which comes out every week on Friday. For $5, you get all the bonus content plus early access to the regular shows. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor. Good to have you back on, Scott. You know, it's been a while since we've had you on as a guest, and it's been a while since you and I have actually seen each other in person, so that's awesome.
Right. And I know I sound like a broken record every time I talk to you. If you have somebody drop, if you are bored, I can't imagine what the appetite to have me around looks like for anybody, but I'm always game to do this. I love hanging out with you. So,
well, I mean, usually I don't really think too much about like numbers, and obviously I know, you know, like based on the music that I play, I don't care too much about popularity or anything like that. So I do,
you and me both.
You know, I'm always of the mindset that if you build it, people will come. So I know that people enjoy having you on, and I know I enjoy speaking with you. We have a lot of very similar tastes and interests, so it's always fun.
Yeah, man, for sure. I always look forward to this. As soon as I get the text or the phone call about it or whatever, I'm usually like getting amped, just wondering where we're gonna get on to over the course of the conversation. So
right on, man. So it's a kind of a, I wouldn't say an off year, but a little bit of a slow year for Ken Mode right now.
100%. And I don't think that like I would be speaking out of turn in any way to like be specific about it, because I think that Jesse's been pretty like forthcoming with like just him just having a year where he's kind of taken time out for, you know, to recalibrate a little bit. And
right.
that, that comes for me with like, you know, he's my friend. I love him. I respect him, and I want him to do what he needs to do so that we, move on to whatever we're going to do next. And if it takes time, it takes time. And that's just kind of where he's at right now. And I don't really, I wouldn't say that I have any information about that he hasn't already kind of sort of broadcast to the world. So there's nothing wild going on. I was just texting back and forth with him just a couple minutes ago. So like we're still, still in touch and stuff. But it's yeah, just I'm a province away from those guys. So
Yeah.
we still there's still a lot of like bullshitting going on and everything like that, but nothing really in discussion at the moment until the time is right, right? Like I'm not with that band. I'm never in the position to be the one that says it's on. So
I've grown to admire his ability to compartmentalize all this stuff and like kind of segregate chunks of time for things because, I know that him and Shane have the business that they're doing up there. They started at least over a decade ago at this point, I think.
yeah, well, I mean, I think the actual official like branding of it and everything like that is, yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah,
It's
it's
coming
about
up
10
on it.
years ago.
Yeah, it's about coming up on that now. I think you're right. And like they were doing that type of business beforehand as well in a lot of capacities, but there's certain areas of the calendar that we just know we're never going to be able to work in, and
Yeah.
the other thing is, and like I think to a lot of people, you're discussing day job type stuff, the presumption is, oh, your day job is the thing that you do in order to do everything else. But like they are doing things that I think have a very big impact on underground scene in a lot of ways, and
Yeah,
they
totally.
help a lot of people out. And they come from, because of the world they come from, it colors their professional lives in a way that I think that they're more kind of present than you would than you would presume in a lot of ways.
A while back when he started this, I had Jesse on and we talked about all of the details of the business that they're doing. And part of it is I know like in Canada, there's a program up there to get funding for your creative projects. I know that Kenmo did something like that, a while back, and he kind of walks a lot of the Canadian artists through that process. So that's like having someone to help you out with putting a proposal together and doing the business part, because historically us musicians aren't the best at doing spreadsheets and figuring out budgets, things like that. So
Well, and I feel lucky too because I'm not one of those people. I can't get that shit together for the life of me. And I'm in a band with three people because Catherine is also of that of that world,
yeah.
who all have their heads in that in a way that I think has been. I mean, it's been. I'm kind of maybe overblowing it a little bit to a degree, but to a lot of people who are making certain types of music at a certain level, it's sometimes semi life changing stuff for other people because they don't anticipate that they're going to be able to. Make those extra steps and everything like that. You don't get into doing. Well, I mean, some people do, but typically speaking, if you're doing something that is art for art's sake, you're not anticipating that you're going to be rewarded with dime one. So for them to help people through those processes, because typically that's what it is. Like you said, it's more of a, I think it's more of a personality type A, type B type thing where a lot of musicians just don't have a head for that type of stuff. And that's myself included. Like I think I do better than other people occasionally that with that stuff, but it is never without their help. I always ask, hey, am I doing this right? And like I'm not and so I get to see it from both sides because I also get to be around when they get frustrated with the way musicians just are. I don't know, because sometimes they can just, sometimes it's not having a head for it, and sometimes it's just being lazy, and a lot of
Yeah.
us are lazy too, right?
Yeah, it's definitely the case for sure in some
Yeah.
cases. But just on a personal level for me, just seeing the way that he's able to kind of segregate his time. Because
Mhm.
up until about a year ago, I was just like full steam ahead, all in, all the time, rock and roll guy,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
ready to roll. But in the last few years, I got married earlier this summer. So
Mhm. Big congratulations.
thank you very much. So there's like that life change, and then just My career as a mechanical engineer has taken a lot of steps forward. So that's actually a bigger part of my life than it's been in the last decade or so.
Mhm.
So that's that's taken on more of my time, and my availability to do these rock and roll things has sort of kind of been diminished somewhat. So, I like the way Jesse's been able to continue doing the band, have his career, all that stuff, and I'm taking that as an inspiration. So,
Well, I think a huge part of it is figuring out how you do it in such a way that because it comes down to the health of your like artistic pursuits and your band, whatever that shape that takes or whatever for you to be strategic about it as opposed to doing what so many people we know have eventually done, which is they have a difficult time balancing it for like I don't know 5 minutes and then just throw their hands up and go, I can't do this anymore.
yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I don't know how to not do this. So there's an imperative to try to figure that out and make it work. Like, I mean, I come from a place of major privilege insofar as I work at a place where I'm able to get the time off that I need in order to do whatever it is that I need to do. And when I entered kind of a busier touring schedule in my life and like just it became a more all-encompassing venture. I was prepared to walk away from something that is pretty comfortable for somebody in my position, which is like somebody who's non-educated, doesn't really like pretty spotty I would call pretty spotty background in terms of I guess just like my work life has not I was kind of all over the place for a long time. Now I've been in the same spot for I think I've been there for 13 years or something. But um like I don't I'm a professional at absolutely nothing. And I don't I shouldn't be in a position to be calling shots and saying like, oh yeah, no, I go out when I want. I like don't I don't really like ask permission as much as I say, hey, I'm going to be gone here. And just so I won't be around, that type of thing. And like working remotely and everything like that. And like I don't know that I have that coming to me necessarily, but that's the situation I'm in, and I feel very, very lucky for that. And I don't know that I deserve it, but I've got it, and I'm holding on for dear life on that front.
Nice. So just to remind everyone, what is your actual day job again?
I am, at least according to my business card anyway, I'm the film programmer at a place called the Broadway Theater in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is 430 seat, sorry, 430 soft seat venue, which acts as well for my silo at the place. It's a movie theater. It's also a venue that kind of we've done a little bit of everything there. Like we're a lot of people. There's so many comparative theaters in the world. It's actually like a better model to have invested in rather than just being a movie theater these days. To have a more versatile place that has like a stage, and we can on one night we'll be hosting a bunch of Kurosawa movies, and then the next night we'll have Godspeed You Black Emperor come through or something like that. Like we do a little bit of everything. It we're a nonprofit, so like we're punching pretty far above our weight in terms of like we do a lot of stuff that I think is pretty audacious for the style of business that we are, but we do some like yeah, like I said, I've never I believe in the kind of the mission of the place. I've been there for I think it's longer than that now. Like I've kind of lost track. I think at least 13 years, probably more now. Um, and yeah, like that's I've been kind of a lot of things there over the years, but a few years ago I kind of said like I really 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 need to invest in film, and nobody else here cares about film the way that I do, and I need you guys to give me the space to just be the film guy here. And so I've been ostensibly dedicated to that, or doing my best to be just the film programmer and do what my business card says, because my business card does not say that I am the 15 other things that we need. And sometimes that's not like particularly fair to everybody, but I also kind of know where my limits are at in terms of like I've been able to deliver a lot more in the last few years, I think, compared to where I was when I was wearing 19 different hats. So I think like the film, like if you check in with most theaters right now, like film is kind of ever dipping, and our film numbers are going up. And I think that's because I can put my time and effort into it the way that it deserves and needs. So
Yeah, every time we talk about this place, I'm always like, man, that is 100% my kind of place. And hopefully someday I'll be able to make it up there to check some kind of event out, you know?
well, I mean, yeah, if you were in town, this would be the place. There's a lot of people who just kind of culture, at least as far as their arts and culture stuff, they just kind of live there. Like they spend so much time there. And I mean, that's the kind of, well, I mean, we also do like, some pretty bunk ass tribute shows and stuff like that. So maybe not live there, but we actually the other night we had what I think was kind of sold as like kind of more of like a dance thing, but pretty much just wound up being a borderline nude male stripper review that I think we weren't all prepared for because we have some pretty archaic laws surrounding stripping in Saskatchewan. So we were biting our nails and hoping that the towels weren't going to drop too far. But so like I said, we will do anything.
Well, that's cool. Well, we were talking about music. So before we started recording, you indicated some pretty exciting news, which I'll uh, have you discuss to whatever de in whatever detail you want. And I'm really excited about it. So yeah, you got some developments in your musical career. So
Yeah,
let's get into that a little bit.
well, while things are kind of slower on my side, at least as far as Ken Mode is concerned, because I'm still doing like the timing of this development is kind of funny because I am getting busier with some other stuff. Like in a few days I leave for a trip with my band Adeline. We're going out
Mhm.
to Nelson, BC to go play a festival out there, and like we're still busy. And I have signed on to. I think the last time I was on, we were discussing my project Deep Infirmary because I think my
Yeah.
Frontline Assembly remix had just come out,
Yep.
and that project is now set to have its live debut in January.
Awesome.
So I'm not like I'm not having downtime. I don't really know how to have downtime, if I'm being totally honest with you. And to bolster that point, I was asked by a friend of mine, Steve Austin from Today is the Day, to help those
The
guys
Steve
out.
Austin. The Steve
Yes,
Austin.
Steve,
Yes.
Steve Austin, to go and they were down one bass player for a tour they've got coming up November, December. So I'm going to help them out with that. And I'm like, my background, there's no way we've not talked about this on this podcast, but like they are. Steve has had made such an enormous mark on my brain. He's like
Yeah.
his way of doing things has been so important to the development of what he actually kind of his music kind of pulled me back into heavy music at one point because I was kind of feeling a bit of a drift when I wasn't seeing myself in metal quite so much. Like I never really gave up on loud music entirely, but I grew up like a metal kid. And I was gradually when I was like kind of getting into high school when like new metal was starting to come out. I didn't really have the internet yet at that point. The record stores had what they had, and I didn't. I just kind of, or it was less the record stores than like magazines and things like that. I just wasn't seeing bands I dug anymore. I didn't see myself in any of the stuff anymore, and I just said like, I guess like loud music isn't really like my thing. I was finding out about, industrial music and like more experimental music. And um, I was finding like I think before I was in high school, there was this radio station that would play like stuff like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And I was finding myself in music like that a lot more. And just as I was like kind of getting to a point where I wasn't even really doing like loud guitar rock all that much anymore, I heard Today is the Day and kind of like said, oh, that's closer to home than anything I've ever heard in my life. Like that's what I'm looking for. And it absolutely ripped my mind open. And I cannot stress how big of an impact that band had on me. So having I've worked with Steve in the studio on a couple of records.
You
We've
played like on recordings with Today's Day with Steve?
no, not with Today's the Day. No, no, no. Steve worked on the first couple of Adeline records.
Oh,
Actually,
okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. All right.
he did
All
the
right.
post production on the first record, and then on our second record, he actually recorded it and did all the post production as well. So we worked with him at a couple different states because that first one we worked with him in Massachusetts because he was still down there at that point, and then we worked with him in Nashville on the second record.
Right on.
And yeah, so known him for years, and I haven't really like like I wish I would see him more often because I've always gotten along great with him. I flew him out to play a show in Saskatoon one time, and I like he was out. What was he out with? He was out. Today's the day was opening for Soulfly when they were doing that Nail Bomb tour, and I went out to Regina, Saskatchewan to see him. So, but I only see him ever so often. We just don't have the opportunity, and he's way up in Maine now.
Right, right.
So we're in touch, but I don't see him all that often. But then all of a sudden, just the call out of the blue, I was in office. I think it was a Wednesday afternoon, nothing going on, and all of a sudden I was like, why the hell is Steve Austin calling me on a Wednesday afternoon? And he was just getting ready to do another tour. Like the last tour Today's the Day he just did. It was him and a drummer.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And yeah, and I think he was going to do the same thing. And he had just kind of, it occurred to him that I had mentioned that I wasn't up to much this year. And he knows, like, I don't know if you've ever like, have you ever had the opportunity, Mike, to like play for another band that you like?
No.
I've only known you to play your own music.
Yeah, I don't learn other people's material very well. It's like,
No,
yeah, it's just not. I admire people who can do that, man. It's just not my bag, really. You know,
well,
I end up taking someone's riffs and twisting it into something that I would play, so it doesn't work well for me, really.
Well, yeah, like I don't sit around learning other people's songs either. I don't really that it's of no interest to me and it's kind of in one ear out the other. I don't really like I don't have sound check riffs really. Like I've got the odd thing of somebody else's I know how to play, probably playing it in the wrong key, blah blah blah, whatever. But the I have found when learning, like the process of learning the Ken mode stuff when I joined and everything like that, that your your likelihood of surviving the process has to do with your knowledge of the catalog, and
Right.
you can't fake caring about the music and wanting it to sound as good as it can. And when I joined Ken Mode, I was deeply into their music, and I didn't have to be taught how the songs, like, I needed to learn how the songs are played, but I knew how the songs went. And the same thing with Today's the Day. Like none of this stuff is this music's been traveling with me for some of it decades now. And so I don't need to go, oh yeah, right. This is that part where that flips over here and there's a half chorus and a blah blah whatever. I know what the form of all the songs are. So I do think while I'm certainly not, I'm not Les Claypool or whatever. I'm not one of those people. I'm not like I I think that I have a way that I play, and I think that
Yeah.
if I'm a good application to a band, then that's great. I can be a really great addition, and I do think that this is a unique situation in which I think I am kind of like the right guy for the job.
That's pretty much like in Tombs, we've had a lot of different people in and out of the band over the years. And like I never tell someone to learn the songs note for note, really. I always like, all right, here's the songs, like interpret them. And if there's something that jumps out as not being like cool, like we'll talk about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even especially the drums, because it's like, over the years we had so many different style drummers in the band. And right now. We've our Justin is like super technical, very, very much like a drummer's drummer. So, he's got like free reign to interpret all the songs. And Dan, our guitar player, like all the solos, like everything are really his creations. Like they're not anything that's been recorded on the records per se. And even the sort of the but playing live with everyone over the years, it's like even the form of the songs themselves changed somewhat too. So it's I like that. I'd rather have a band playing if you didn't weren't in the on the record, you can interpret it. And the fact that someone's playing in the band means that they're of the same mindset. And that way the songs might come out sounding a little different, but they're still in that same sort of, vibe. You know what I mean?
And I think every band and every expectation in a band is going to be totally different for that. And especially like Tombs, like you're gonna be, you're king of the castle over there. So you get to make that distinction. Hey, I want you to come in and color it in a little bit more, like the way you would do it, because I'm gonna get like the best out of you. We haven't been in the same room since we agreed that I was going to do this thing, so I
Right.
haven't. I'm not totally certain. I from watching live stuff, I do know that there's been a lot of different styles applied to these
Yeah,
songs. Whereas,
exactly.
like with Ken Mode in particular, they uh, really beat me up like for a long time, getting kind of in line. Like they have a very particular way they like for things to go.
Right.
Even when we're working on stuff, I can bring something in that is the way that I like for it to be. And if it needs to be adjusted because somebody says something, needs to change a little bit, and I need to rewire my like internal logic about how that works because, maybe I came up with it, but they want to make it, do something slightly different. They will, yeah, they can beat me up on my own riffs sometimes. So like I'm used to doing it either way. And I'm kind of open to doing it either way because I think that I found that I find that kind of like rough, disciplined workout time with Ken Mode. While I'm sure like some of that can be really like frustrating for other people sometimes. Like that's the only thing I don't like about it is I don't like feeling like I'm wasting people's time. But I do think that I've gotten to be quite a bit better as a result. I think that, like I do think that becoming a more disciplined player has just been good for me all around. I kind of hold myself to a higher standard while not, again, it hasn't turned me into like a Shredder's Delight guitar player, number one guy or anything like that. And it never will. I am just a little bit too, I'm a little bit too me to ever wind up being anyone's favorite anything, but it's made me better at what I do for certain. Uh, when I have a chance to, I guess, be myself a little bit more in other people's parameters, like I'm playing bass in another local band here in Saskatoon called Soulmates that I play bass in, and they gave me like a rough approximate that's the last band I kind of dropped into and had to learn a catalog on. And
Right.
yeah, they left me some space to kind of they gave me some tabs. Some of them weren't even right. Like they were, it was it
That's
was
funny.
it
Yeah.
was it was rough, and I figured out where I fit in, and no one has ever said anything to like there's spots I know I'm doing things differently, and sometimes they left me the space to change things. Well, I mean, like I would catch them and go like, "Hey, why did your guy play it like this?" And they go, "Oh, I don't know." And I just go like, "That's wrong." "Oh, okay, we'll play it right then." Like it just like there's I'm used to like such a wide swath of behavior when it comes to just I've never been in a band that's ever behaved the same. Like every band I've been in, and like for years and years, again, per me asking you if you've ever had to learn anyone else's material, like I was in a situation where I was typically the one calling the shots for so long that when I flipped over and was able to kind of play under different circumstances and everything like that, it was really edifying and really interesting. It was really tough sometimes. Like, it would, I still there's probably some associated PTSD with some of it, but
Oh man.
um, but I think that it's made it so that like my ability to drop into any situation and figure out like kind of suss out what the expectation level is on what we're doing and rising to the occasion is something that I'm game to do. And like, and I don't, this one, I'm right now in a situation where I'm kind of just in the dojo going over all the material. And like, again, I love these songs so much. Um, and having a chance to like see how they operate and sometimes get like, like have them completely throw me for a loop and be like, really, that's what they're doing there has been exciting and kind of like, it's the same thing. Every batch of material you got to take on that's this size is always like, it's exciting and it's frustrating and it's like, edifying. And you go like, oh, I think like have gained a little bit of appreciation for this song I didn't think I could appreciate anymore. It's cool. It's really cool.
Well, you mentioned like a huge catalog of material. So what do you remember what record you got into originally with Today's a Day? Like what was your entry point with them?
Well, that's kind of funny because I do think that I had I sometimes struggle to remember precisely what it was because it was right in and around and I feel like we've talked about this before, but right in and around when I finally got the internet, I caught up with everybody, and Napster was popping off in a big
Right.
way. I was just like I was able to sample things like I'm a huge record collector. All it
Yeah,
did
of course.
was like the file sharing era. All it did was make an absolute monster out of me, and that's what I like. I'm into. I'm a record collector now, and but the thing that used to be overwhelming was like, well, if I go into the CD store, they're only going to let me sample a few discs at a time, and I feel like I'm inconveniencing somebody. And like, how do I pick? And how, like I want to hear what all this stuff
Oh,
sounds like. And
dude.
all of a sudden, I could hear all of it
Do you
all
remember
at
the
once.
listening stations at places like, the like down here in the I don't know if they had Tower Records in Canada, but like Tower Records listening stations or Virgin Megastore. It's like back in the day when those stores existed, you go in there and you can listen to like a couple tracks here and there. And it was just so much fun, man, back then to do that.
Yeah, and but there's limitations though,
Yeah.
right? Like they
Yeah.
would I like like you would only take a few up at once, which was nice, but it was also, you had a couple bad picks and you go like, oh, I just, blew my ride downtown to go do this thing, and I don't want any of these. Whereas when you had access to all of the music you could possibly want to learn about, I almost feel like I read about Today Is the Day before I even heard them. I could be wrong about this, but I feel like I read about them in Kerrang.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
It was in it was like in a it was either that or Metal Hammer. It was a UK publication for sure, because
Yeah.
it was about them playing like showing up and freaking everyone the fuck out.
Well,
And I was like, oh, I want.
if it was during the relapse era, then yeah, it probably was. You probably read about them in like Kerrang when they started. I think that's when they started covering bands like Today Is the Day during that era.
Mhm. Well, I it would have been after that because I'm just young enough that like I it was more relapse era stuff. Like I think it maybe would have. I want to say that I think I really do want to say that the first time I actually remember like sitting in front of them and being aware of the record was as late as maybe is it was maybe as late as In the Eyes of God.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's a time when I think they were probably at their like that's when they kind of became bigger than they were in the early 90s. Was
yeah,
in the eyes of God, Relapse Records.
yeah.
It exposed them to like metal fans. You know what I mean? Because like prior to that, they were all the AMRAP records. They were more in like playing, doing tours of like Jesus Lizard type bands, like that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like more indie noise rock, whatever you want to call it. Like what noise rock didn't exist as a term in the early 90s, but like what became known as noise rock was the
Yeah.
scene that sort of came out that Today's the Day was part of in the early 90s. Like they were
Well, yeah,
not,
and I know the tours they were out doing were like, they were supporting like their three-way split with like Guzzard and
yeah,
Chokebore and stuff
yep.
like that, which like, hey,
Fine, great bands
great
too.
bands. Chokebore, I really like. I'm a
Yeah.
like big fan of. Does that make any sense though? Probably not.
At the time it did.
Well,
This is the
maybe.
thing. This is like, a little bit of a different perspective on it. Cause like, I'm a little bit older than you. So in the
Mhm.
90s, early 90s, I was, way into Touch and Go and, Amphetamine Reptile, as well as like all the death metal and stuff like that I was into, black metal. I found about black metal in the early 90s too. And like it was the Amphetamine Reptile, Dope Guns and Fucking 7-inch that came out with them on it. And that's how I got exposed to them. And I was just like, all right, this is some different shit. And then suddenly everyone I knew about was talking about this band. And they were just like, it was like the future of music, and I tend to agree with them, and Willpower was the one that put me in that mindset of like, this band is like one of the most powerful bands I've ever experienced. And then I saw them live, and the early lineup was great. I saw the Relapse lineups. I saw them with Bill and Braun playing in the band. I saw them later all throughout their career. I haven't seen Today's Day in a while, but
Mhm.
I've seen them probably like 40 times in my life, I think.
Right. I was just doing the math on this, and I actually think so. I think I was exposed to them via I wanted like I downloaded some of In the Eyes of God, and I mean you see that Paul Booth cover and you're just
Yeah.
like, I mean that's pretty instant. And it is funny because I worked my way back, and now like some of my favorite stuff is the AMRAP stuff. Like some of that is like music that I carry with me
Oh yeah,
everywhere. It's
yeah,
had such a huge impact, especially on Adeline. Like the some of that stuff is just you can't divorce it. But I think like the one like so that period I'm talking about where they kind of pulled me back in, and I realized like, oh, there's a bunch of weirdo shit going on that's being built for me. Like they're just waiting for me to come back. Might have actually been Sadness Will Prevail, honestly.
yeah,
Like as a full as a like as I because you want to talk about a full package, full immersion thing. And I know like, some people struggle with it because it's such a big project. But like the cover, I remember hearing The Descent and seeing that video for the first time and just feeling like, oh, like somebody wrote music for me. Like
yeah.
that's what that felt like. Like this was written for, like this was written in a language that I didn't know that I speak perfectly, and that like this, it felt very much like it belonged to me. And so like and I've never after I've that's never fallen away. That's always been a sensation I have attached to the band ever since then. And then like it just it just cracked everything open, and I was really I was enthused about making rock music again after that. Like it couldn't have been more influential on me.
Yeah, Steve has a penchant for just like dialing into like this part of your brain too. Like like if you're experiencing any kind of obstacle in your life or some
Mhm.
sort of hard times, that Today Is a Day as a band, like in his writing and his lyrics and the way he plays guitar and just the whole vibe of the band is something that will help you propel yourself through these hard times. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like, Willpower is a record that came to me in a period like that, living in a fucking unheated attic somewhere,
Yeah.
like, having gone through some serious, like, heartbreak shit and disappointments and, living in that environment for like a full year and like having that record beside me, was like, helped me get through all that shit, and it was like I just had like a boombox, like a CD player, and that was I listened to that. I had like, maybe 10 discs with me at that point because everything was in
Mhm.
storage and like, yeah, it's just fucking that record. And even the title, Willpower, just so sick and just
Yeah. Well,
inspirational.
even the band name,
Yeah,
everything
today is
about
the
it.
day.
Well, but like I mean, that could mean anything,
Yeah,
which is like that can be either ominous, that can be it can be threatening. It
yeah,
can it can be positive and affirming. Like it's just it's kind of a again in terms of like a showcase of what you can accomplish within a band and in within like the realms of expression. It was just always such an enormous thing to me. And like hypothetically, man, if I get a chance to do the first show and then I trip on the curb on my way out and smash my head open and I'm in like a coma or something like that, I still got to like do those songs at least once. Like, I
yeah,
mean, it's important to me because like we kind of alluded to this already. Like none of us, are anticipating putting a down payment on a Ferrari
no,
by making music like
not
this.
by
So
music, no.
no, and we have to like for me the big thing is just like and that's the kind of company I try to keep. It's like I believe in Ken Mode. I believe in what we do with that band, and like I mean my other bands, which I wish were enjoying some higher visibility, and I really like do my best to try to do what I can with those bands when I'm able. If I didn't believe in the music we were making, like certainly I wouldn't be hemorrhaging money on them that I
Yeah,
do.
this is true. Yeah.
You've got to, like if you're the type of person that's making stuff that you believe in, like you're going to be behind it. It's you don't know how to not, invest in that, and having the opportunity to like, if I can help that entity back, in it, they need a bass player right now, and if I can play those songs, I know that I will confidently say that the chances of those songs meaning more to me than most people is very good. And I think that my arsenal is such that whether you consider it limited or not, because again, I'm not going to go up and be able to play Tom Sawyer or whatever, but like if what I do know how to do can service those songs proportionately, I'm like that's very meaningful to me. I consider it an enormous honor and opportunity. So yeah, it's really exciting.
That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Definitely. I know Steve, but I don't know him. You know what I mean? Like we've met, our paths have crossed over the years, and he's always been pretty cool to me. So, but I wouldn't say that I know him. Like we're like friends or
We
anything
should
like
hook
that.
the two of you guys up because he is a really good talker. He's a lot of fun to hang
Oh,
out with.
yeah.
He's like a guest. I've had him as a guest on my radio show before.
Oh, cool.
I had to split it into two episodes because we talked for so long. Like
Oh, wow.
he's a really good time, and he's like, I mean, he's kind of game to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Like I mean, he's a blast, man. He's a lot of fun.
Let's make that happen, man. I'd definitely be down for that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, all right, great. That's good stuff, man. And I look forward to hearing more about all this stuff and checking out dates. And I'm sure
Yeah,
that, you
there's
know,
some stuff coming up. Like there's some stuff I don't know yet. I like I mean maybe closer to we can talk again or maybe
yeah.
afterwards or something like that because some of it I'm still waiting to get some marching order detail on right now. But it's when the time is right. I'm like I'm hoping to have the opportunity to play for my friends, man. I
Hell
want
yeah,
to
man.
go out and again, if there's any opportunity for me to go out and do this thing right in front of the people that I care about, then I don't know how it could be any better.
Yeah, I kind of like going to shows in Philly these days a little bit more than, even though I live really close to New York City, for some reason Philly, it's just less of a pain in the neck to get down there.
I think I've seen you there
Yeah, a couple
the
times.
last couple times I've been through, right? That's typically
Yeah.
where, yeah,
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 I
yeah,
see you guys in Philly. The last two times I saw Ken Mode was in Philadelphia. And
yeah.
yeah, I think I was talking to Shane about what a pain in the ass New York City is, like just about parking and dealing with fucking traffic and all that stuff. So yeah.
I mean, I don't like I like being in New York City. I think New
Yeah.
York is a really fun place, but like I mean, I've never outside of like I've vacationed there with my wife, but I haven't ever, with the band, we never stay overnight or anything like
No,
that. Like
no,
we're
no,
always out of
man.
there as soon as we
Yeah.
can to
Absolutely.
get
Yeah,
out
get
of there.
stay out in Jersey somewhere or Connecticut
Yeah.
or wherever. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you had the film festival, the Toronto Film Festival, and was
Mhm.
that part of your job or what's the deal with that?
100% because you've got to
Work trip.
have like kind of credentials to
Yeah.
get in because the capacity I'm there is in the capacity of press and industry. So basically, in a nutshell, for anyone who doesn't know the Toronto International Film Festival, that's like in North America. Like, I mean, it's I don't, size wise, I'd be talking about it my ass if I said I knew what it was compared to like Sundance or something like that. But in terms of like the prestige and everything like that, it's the size of Cannes and Sundance and that kind of thing. Like it's that
It's definitely
it's
noteworthy for sure.
indeed,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's huge, big like red carpet thing or whatever. But if you press an industry, which is people who, in my case, I'm there as an exhibitor, which is basically like, to put it like bluntly, it's kind of like almost like product testing is what it
Okay.
feels like because I'm checking into all these movies that are going to be available to me in theory over the course of the next year. Sometimes some of these movies don't come out for like 2 years. Like I've got to keep detailed notes on everything because I don't always if you see like I was it's a 10 or 11 day festival. I saw 50 festival entries this year. So I've got to keep notes on everything because I go every year and that's a lot of movies. But the the way it works for press and industry, so it's me and it's people who are writing reviews. So all the again press, people who are doing interviews for things. It's funny actually, this is the first year I've ever actually noticed like the publicists grabbing quotes and stuff on the way out of the door. So if you have press on your badge, they'll pull you aside and say like, "Hey, can I get a quick quote from you and who you
Nice.
are and everything like that." And that's where that stuff happens, right? Like when a movie starts like establishing a feeding frenzy. Like let's use The Substance as an example.
Yeah.
So The Substance premiered at Toronto International, and so nobody knows what this thing's going to do until it has its initial screenings, and then you feel over the course of like of a screening or just like a couple of days, and you realize there's like, oh, that one screening I was at, there's like crazy buzz about this thing all of a sudden. And then all of a sudden, all the public screenings that exist are totally sold out and impossible to get into, even though they're like 15 100 seater venues and stuff like that. Like it's where kind of that initial excitement for titles is established, right? And so earlier on in the schedule, the way it works is there's a bunch of screenings that start at like 8 in the morning, that are reserved for just press and industry. Public can't get anywhere near them. And we all go to them, and just you bounce around this like kind of 15 screen megaplex all day. Just like
Damn.
you look at your schedule and you go around and see as much as you can and get into what you can, because sometimes there's smaller theaters and they'll be sold out or whatever. But and then and then you do your best to keep up over 10 days. Most of the time people don't go completely whole hog the way that I do most of the time. I don't think most people see 50 movies. But you can participate like as press and industry. You can go to the public screenings too, and kind of gradually over the course of the festival, the press and industry screenings start evaporating and it just turns into more and more public stuff. So you just see what you can get into. And there's a like a midnight program that's a really big part of like that kind of informs some festival stuff that we do at the theater. So I try to go to all the midnighters too, which means like basically I'm out until like sometimes 2, 3 in the morning or something like that, and then I'm
Wow.
up for screenings at like 8:30 or
Damn.
whatever. So it's pretty wild.
Now,
And
how?
and, and
Yeah,
then as far as
that's
other
like,
shit that I'm doing while I'm there too, like this year was like, like there's meetings and stuff, like boring stuff that no one like, or at least I mean it's not boring for me, but like we're going and dealing with our distributors or just like certain things like that. I got to go to a couple of after parties this year, which a lot of the time I would kind of skip, but they were ones where I had reasons to go. So like I was out really late for those. But it's for me, the big thing is just that it affects my year so much to, like it's all Intel collection, right? So I've got to see a ton of shit. Some of it is some I'll sample stuff that's not of private interest to me, but that's like that's what you're there to. I'm not there to just be a geek, although I do make a lot of room for it. But I'm there for the benefit of my org. So
yeah. So what, that's a lot of films, man. 20,
yeah,
I mean, 50 films is a ton. Even 20, I said misspoke and said 20. That's still a lot of movies to watch in a small span of time. But so what is there to look forward to, man? I know Frankenstein, which I think that has a release date. That's upcoming. You saw that.
yeah.
Like what other what are some of the more notable things that are coming our way?
Well, okay, so actually it's funny, and like I will say, like before we stray too far from Frankenstein, I can't remember off the top of my head. Are you a Del Toro guy?
Yeah, I like Del
Yeah,
Toro.
okay. I have always liked, but maybe not totally loved him. Like I always like his movies, but like they're never year enders for me. I think like his like scale and everything is really impressive. But I haven't been like kind of head over heels really since like maybe Pan's Labyrinth. But then I'll
Yeah.
also stick up for him when it comes to like I don't know, like people really kind of dunked on Crimson Peak, a fair deal, and I was like, nah, it's fine. I think it's good. I like it. I like that kind of gothic style and everything like that. I think, and I don't know what everyone's saying about it yet. I can say this completely naked, without other people's opinions swaying me on this because I don't really know how it's doing critically. I I think that it's like the best thing he's done since Pants. I really like that.
That's what I was
Big,
hoping you'd say. Because
yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth is my favorite thing he's done. And
Mhm.
he has like a spotty success rate, I think, in some ways. I mean, I always like his films, but it's rare that I love them, like you were saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very
Yeah.
similar then. Yeah. 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 Like I think
Yeah.
he's too accomplished and too and he's earnest. He really loves film. Like
Yeah.
like you can't get too upset with him because I don't think he's ever doing anything that is like, um, I don't know, like I disingenuous, or it never feels like he's being driven by anyone else. Like he has his own opinion and he has his own way of doing things, and I don't think I'm not always like totally the audience for it. This one was kind of special, and I think that for me anyway, the big thing he did is I don't feel like he tried to like put a spin on it. I think it felt very much like he was just trying to do the best possible version of Frankenstein he could. And I think he has ruined Frankenstein for a couple of decades at least. I don't think there's been
Really.
any purpose in anyone else even touching Frankenstein in a like straightforward fashion. I think he's just told the best version possible of that story. It's I thought it was awesome. I really liked it.
I'm glad to hear that because and the fact that you say that it's actually closer to the Shelley material, source material makes me optimistic about it too. Because
Yeah, but I
that's
mean, I think it's been so long. Like, I mean, I'm sure it deviates more than I'm realizing, but at the same time, like, like in terms of the spirit of the thing and like not feeling too like I didn't feel like the thing I was worried about was it was going to feel too Del Toro-y to me. And there's like some set design and stuff that's like some very huge, audacious, crazy set design and everything like that, and that's great. Like that, like it's identifiable insofar as it's that, but like the dramatic turns and everything like that, it's just a really just a story well told, and
yeah.
that should be obvious, but I mean the majority of movies are not stories well told, so it's a tough one to tell because we've seen it 1,000 times,
Well, but
but I
that's the
think that
thing,
it's
man.
yeah.
It's like we haven't really seen that. Like we've seen what people think they want. Like, all right, for example, the Universal Frankenstein.
Mhm.
Different than Mary
Yes,
Shelley. Okay.
yes.
But people keep remaking that version of Frankenstein, not the Mary Shelley version, where it's like, I mean, the Universal's great. It's just different, and that story that Shelley told, I don't think is ever really given its due in the film world. So I'm excited and I'm not saying it's, a note by note, cover of it. It's just, if you, based on what you're saying, it's going more in that direction with storytelling. It's more of a gothic tale,
Mhm. Oh, it's gothic as all hell. It is like, I mean, it's the levels of gothic are like early there. It's funny, they're early Tim Burton levels of gothic, except for it's very earnest and not like it never, but never silly. It's like Hammer levels of gothic.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
So I've been looking
Um,
forward to that. And is that a 2026 release date for that?
Dude, I think that's coming out like right away.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
the big thing, like there's a lot of people who were in line for it because I got in really last minute for that one. I didn't even think I was going to get into it, and a lot of people were going like, it's going to be out on Netflix right away, so who cares? Like I'll see it if I don't get in, I'll see it. But I think there's a limited theatrical for it,
I'm going to
and
see
I
that
think that
theater for sure.
it's to be seen in the theater. It should be seen at scale. Like it's an enormous movie. I mean, of course, a film exhibitor is going to say this, but like the fact that anyone could think that they can, well, it just comes back to that David Lynch quote, right? To think that somebody could think they've seen a film on their fucking cell phone. Get
Yeah.
real.
No, totally.
Like that's, I mean, a movie like this was not. This is a piece of art that was not made to be watched on an iPad. Like it should be watched as big and as loud as you can possibly see it.
I there's always for years been talk about Del Toro doing The Mountains of Madness by H.P.
Yeah.
Lovecraft, and that apparently is not going to happen. So that's a bummer.
Yeah, well, and I mean the big thing is just like hasn't he just kind of been told over and over again, you're not going to be able to make it the way you want to make it? Is that not it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like yeah, but I mean, when it comes to Lovecraft, unfortunately, Richard Stanley, I thought really delivered a good piece of
Yeah.
work with Color Out of Space. However, he had some issues that got in the way of his career,
Well,
unfortunately.
yeah, because he was supposed to, was he doing Dunwich Horror next? Is that
Yeah,
what yeah, that's what it was supposed to have been. Yeah. And I mean, I still think he made, for me, I think he made the greatest Terminator ripoff of all time too.
oh, hardware.
Um,
Hardware is
oh
good.
my, hardware is unbelievable. And I mean, I don't know. I wish we could all stop I mean, creative people are unwell typically. And I mean, Richard Stanley's an on record unwell guy. I mean, you just
Yeah.
have to watch that Lost Souls documentary to
Yep.
know he's together. But
Well, the unfortunate thing
it's
about him, and this might
I
be
mean, if
controversial
you want to,
to some of you people, but like no one, there was a case brought against him by somebody for sexual misconduct, but it kind of just the case came up, ruined his career, and then just disappeared. You
I don't
know?
know I don't really know anymore what I'm really bad at keeping up with the like the TMZ
Yeah.
side of like of this type of stuff is concerned. Like especially like I don't feel like as just a citizen I really have access to anything real, and we only get like the big sizzle off of
Yeah.
stuff like this. And so I don't really know what to do with a lot of that stuff.
I mean,
But I do know
I'm not taking any sides
he's
or
not gonna
judging.
get done with horror made
Yeah, I mean
anytime
that
soon.
sucks. Yeah. I mean, the fact that Mel Gibson can still make films and Richard Stanley can't is really a travesty to me. But,
Well,
we'll
that
just
that
leave
has
it at
to
that.
again that speaks to a public appetite, and that speaks to the fact that are there enough people? Because like I mean, Mel Gibson's a very on record piece of shit.
Yeah,
Like is that stuff? I mean that those things are inescapable, and we know from the horse's mouth we know what the deal is with that guy, and
absolutely we do.
we're willing to forgive because we believe in the power of brand marketing, and that's how that happens. It's but we see it in a lot of facets of life, like the recognizable is something that we're willing to forgive, and like, oh, I'm never gonna shop at that place again. Well, give it a couple years, and then when it becomes convenient, you're gonna shop there again. Like it's that's the way the human brain works, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, all right. So enough about Richard Stanley. We
Yeah.
don't want to get ourselves in trouble here. But
Yeah.
so what else, man? There's Good Boy. It was something we discussed, and there's another film called Good Boy, which has to do with a dog. Yet
Right,
this
and
this
it's
film is
it's from
something
the
completely
dog's point of
different.
view, right? Have
Yeah.
you've seen that one?
No, I haven't. I've only
Oh, you
seen
haven't?
a
Okay.
trailer for it,
Mhm.
but I haven't seen
Uh,
the film.
okay. Well, the one that I saw was from the director of what is the name of that movie? Corpus Christi. He's a it was a really really good drama that I actually hosted at my theater a few years ago, and Good Boy. I actually had I think like kind of sort of fairly well adept like very like I it was on my like potentials list, but I hadn't bumped it to the top, but I bumped into a friend from back home who said like you've absolutely got to see this thing, it's going to blow your mind. I don't know if I go that far, but I think it was for like in terms of being like what would you put it under? It's like it's a like extremely dark comedy maybe, but like it's one of those ones that's dark to the point that you could only sit it next to the rest of the genre fare because it's so grim. It's this like very I guess like what you'd refer again, I was struggling with this before. I know because it takes place in the UK, you're want to call him like somebody who's behaving ladishly.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like like he's a teenager. It's almost like that kind of like Clockwork Orange, style like ruffian type guy. Except for in the like current parlance, he's like the kind of kid who's like cruising around like laying people out on his cell phone
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. And because he's broadcast all this stuff, like he's a well-known, piece of shit out on the block, and he's made himself an unwitting target um, when he's kidnapped by somebody and put in the basement of this kind of like country estate, chained by his neck, and in an effort to reprogram him. So actually, it's funny. Like the thing that the guy told me, he said there's a lot of Clockwork Orange in this movie.
Okay.
I didn't really totally know what he meant by that, but it has a lot to do with the notion of kind of like forced reprogramming, and and punishment when they're not getting the results you're looking for. And there's it's just this like 19-year-old kid on a stale mattress in a basement chained by his neck and being like shown all the awful things he's done. But then for the comedy side of things, like the guy who has abducted him has shot all of these like kind of embarrassing videos to try to like teach him what good behavior is like, and that's
Right.
where it starts. It's like there's elements of comedy to it, but then also his family is living in this estate and is gradually introduced to the guy they have in the basement. Like it's not a mystery that they have a boy chained up in the basement, and they're going to gradually try to integrate him kind of almost like he's part of the family. Like he's, well, good boy, right? He's a pet,
Yeah.
and until he can stop nipping, he has to stay in the basement. But maybe we give him a little bit more, and maybe he can start, maybe he can move upstairs, maybe he can even play a board game with us if he can behave himself. And then there gets to be some other like kind of crime elements at play, and like with further understanding and maybe like kind of like some level of empathy on both sides. There gets to be more complication, and it gets quite violent. So like it's funny. It's not like a total. You could only put it in genre, like company. It really like it's too weird and too dark to belong anywhere else. But it's kind of a comedy, kind of a thriller. But it's just too dark to not like sit with the horror kids.
Well, it actually, the plot sounds interesting to me, but it also reminds me more of like the new French extremity plots. You know what I mean? Something like
Yeah.
in that, those films are horror films just because they're so extreme. But there isn't really in most of those films, they lack a supernatural element
Mhm.
in most cases. It has to do
Well,
mostly with like extremity, you know?
yeah. Well, and in this case, honestly, the thing that I think takes it out of that because you could very well make this in French and take you'd have to take a lot. It's a very British sense of humor, very
Right.
dry British sense of humor. And that's a huge component of the movie. And again, that even has a bit of a sensation call back to Clockwork a little bit.
Mhm.
But if you took all of that out of it, it would actually feel, I think, closer to being a French, like more of a European film than a British movie. Actually, that's a very astute read on
Yeah, I got to
that
keep
for
my eye out
sure.
for this one. This sounds really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
The
it's
other, the
very
other,
good.
another one that you mentioned that is the new Ben Wheatley, Normal, and I'm a
Yes.
massive Ben Wheatley fan.
Okay, so have you caught like I haven't totally kept up with him. There's been the odd one that's fallen through the cracks. I never saw Meg 2.
No, I didn't see
Um,
any of I didn't see the big stuff that he did. No.
Yeah, and he's had a couple other small ones too, but at one point in time, like I like from earliest stuff all the way up, we I think up until about Free Flyer, which I loved, we always ran his stuff at the theater, but his name started getting bigger and it whereas, a smaller operation, so we stopped being able to get his stuff all the time. And this is an interesting one because it is a little bit more even more than Fire feels a little bit more commercial, but I would be hard pressed to say that I didn't just enjoy the living hell out of it. It feels you have seen this before. There's like it's really difficult to get away from saying this is Ben Wheatley doing X, Y, and Z, which is like in this case, it's him doing Fargo. It's him doing like Hot Fuzz,
Yeah,
that type of thing. It's a small town situation that there's an inevitability. Well, I mean, it's Ben Wheatley, so there's an inevitability of explosive violence eventually, but it is a little bit more on the broad comedy side of things. Like maybe you kind of sort of sitting somewhere like if Free Fire had a little bit more sightseers in it. Like,
right.
did you see both of those?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, like it's a lot more based around action. And I think that one thing that it's both going for it and working against it is you have Bob Odenkirk is the star of it. And if were it not for the fact that we just went through two of those nobody movies with him, you wouldn't
Hmm.
think of Bob Odenkirk as somebody who's capable of,
Doing
getting
action.
yeah, doing action and getting into like, like a physical scuffle with somebody. And like, like thinking of Bob Odenkirk as somebody who's gonna fuck someone up. And because we have that in our heads now, it's, even if you hide him behind a kind of a goofy cop mustache and make him a little paunchier, you still can kind of see that in him. And I think that this would have popped just a little bit harder if it wasn't for those nobody movies. But I still think it absolutely works. And I think that it's one of those things that um in the Ben Wheatley parlance, like you always know that when some small thing gets like left out on a table or like, like just somebody leaves a cupboard open or something like that, like that's gonna wind up really hurting somehow. And there's this threat of constant violence because it's a Ben Wheatley movie where you just, if you're paying close attention, you go like, I don't, there's something ominous about that very bland thing that just happened. And you
Mm.
just know it's going to wind up stinging really bad and you're going to like wince when you see it. And so he still has that sensibility about him. I don't think for me that it's like, it's definitely not one of my favorites of his, but it was still one of my favorites of the festival because I just think Ben Wheatley is punching so far above everyone else at this point.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
his I like the style of his films. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like you can tell that he directed it, and you can actually tell his writing too. But like my favorite, talking about it's on brand for him to have these kind of non-threatening looking guys as
Yeah.
these extreme violence, purveyors, because it's, even going with Kill List, you got Neil Maskell and Michael Smiley in that. And
Yeah.
they're like assassins, you know what I mean? But they're
Mhm.
like these very nondescript looking guys. They're not like shredded, jacked, like, killing machines. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, and so this is like not nearly as dark as that. Like that's one thing I think it could have been a touch darker. Again, it kind of plays a little more broad. I think that some of the like components of the behavior and the extremity of like the outcome of some of the things that happen are the Wheatley touch. Whereas they could have scaled this back and made this kind of a little bit more of a PG-13 movie. They could have there was room to declaw this thing. You can tell that he had a decision to make along the line like how are we going to shoot this? On paper it still works if
Yeah.
character X is dispatched this way, we can do that. But in Ben Wheatley language, he goes like, "Oh yeah, but if we do it this way, then that guy can lose his eye, and that's going to be grisly and hilarious, and it's going to be all that." And so that's where his touches really come through. And there's some really good choreography, which I think like you're never going to catch people talking about like the level of like the choreography of the violence is something that I got really impressed with him with Free Fire in particular,
Yeah,
where
definitely.
that the setup of that room where it's like you move 1 inch and you're going to get your toes blown off or something like that. Like it gives you the sensation of someone hovering over everything in like miniature and going like, okay, if we set this up just like this, nobody can move a muscle or they're going to get messed up. And I've ever since then really been like sensitive to just how much uh like uh, like he's like a master of putting people in physical peril, and this is like that at its best. This has a bunch of that in it.
I think Michael Smiley's in that too, I believe, in
Yes,
Free
yes,
Fire.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I always like seeing him in movies.
Oh no, I mean also like that. I mean, depending on how he ambles in, like I mean, he can immediately be like again a bit of a threat. Like he's a bit of a Chekhov's gun in and of himself. The way he wanders
Yeah.
in, he's not going to show up and be boring. You know that. And but like typically, like I mean, he's not usually the same character. It's
No.
not to say he's that, but he's going to show up and probably steal the show at some point. He always finds his space, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, the best you can hope for out of an actor, and never at the expense of the movie either. I mean, like all great character actors, right? Like he's somebody who knows to play his position.
So what else? Those are the only ones that I was aware of.
Well,
Out of the titles that you've seen. So any other notables that you've checked out that I might not have heard about?
like from a genre perspective, it's been like to me, I feel like it's been kind of a tough year, and
Yeah, overall,
this
yes.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like this reflected that a little bit because there's a couple things that I thought were maybe more interesting than they were uh, good. And I mean, I think that there's a few things that people are going to be talking about, I think anyway, that are like worth looking forward to for almost any type of genre fan. I think the movie Obsession
Okay.
is one that people are going to be talking about in a big way. And on paper, I think it's very dull. But I think in execution, it is really creepy and really brutal. It's a monkey's paw movie, man. Like
Okay.
it's not a complicated thing, and the setup to it is like I'm not ruining anything by mentioning the setup. So it's like it's about a bunch of like kind of like relatively obnoxious, I would say, 20 somethings. One of them's like kind of a nice guy. You know what I mean? Like he's like kind of is feeling sorry for himself. He's like got a crush on a girl that doesn't have a crush on him back, and he doesn't understand why because he thinks he's pretty all right. Um, and he is looking. She's into like crystals and stuff, so he's
Uh-huh.
in like he's in like kind of a witchy shop looking for something for her, and he finds this. I can't remember precisely what it is, but it's like this product that's supposed to be like a wish granting product, basically.
Okay.
And in a moment of very like meta, like winking at the audience, he brings it to the counter, and the girl at the counter is like, yeah, nobody should really buy this. This never works out for anybody. You shouldn't get this. And she's like talking on the phone, and it's at this point in the movie it still feels very much like it feels very comedic. It's more mainly funny up to this point. And so we see like his social situation with like it's like a pretty tight knit group of friends. They all work at like the same music shop and everything together. So they're all hanging out, and it gets to the end of a particular night where he kind of like gets quite close to maybe saying what's on his mind to this girl, and you can tell they have a really good relationship. They're really close, but he just can't get it over the line with her, and then he makes a wish on this dumb product, and he wishes that she like loved him more than anything else. I can't remember what the exact verbiage is, but uh, then ostensibly makes a slave out of her in a way that
Oh, wow.
gets morbid, in a way that, because it's more of a comedy up to that point, the level to which it escalates and becomes extreme it feels very jarring. And some of the horror beats in it are kind of like, again, it's a monkey's paw movie, so on paper it's not very like you feel like you've seen this movie 100 times, but it's all in its execution, and sometimes on occasion it is very brutal, and on other occasions, and you can kind of see where these are coming from. It's really quite scary,
Okay.
uh and the scary moments, I think, oh, they're an enormous debt of gratitude to basically the movie Pulse alone. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sure you've seen Pulse.
yeah, the Kurosawa film.
Yeah, Kurosawa film,
Yeah.
which I just at my theater we just screened his new movie Cloud, and so I also screened Pulse and Cure alongside that. So I've just rewatched those, and like I mean, Pulse has the big moment in it that everyone always talks about, like that very kind of semi-transcendent, like dream logic moment in it that is really alarming, like to your senses. And it, I think, owes a lot of its like style to that movie in particular. Like it's just like when you hear like a band doing something, and it's obviously a Sabbath thing. You're not going to say it's something else. You're just going to go like, oh, big Sabbath riff there.
Yeah.
It just feels like it can only be coming from one space. But and if they didn't pull it off so well, I'd say like, maybe learn how to play your own riffs. But holy shit, did they ever pull it off? And it is like, as a physical feat when they do it, it really, it's a major skin crawl. So it has in its execution so much going for it. And I do think that for like the younger audiences who have been kind of reared on more A24 style stuff, like there's more going on there for them, but they haven't been through like a monkey's paw movie 1,000 times the way old people like us have been. And so I think it'll read as like fresher than it actually is, but I
Okay.
think that that's like besides the point, because it winds up being like, I think the actual overall effect of the thing, and like watching it with an audience, like people were freaking out. And it doesn't really, like, it doesn't feel like it has room really to like become as extreme as it winds up becoming, but it gets there for sure. So Obsession is one that I think, like, I think that it has kind of like potential mainstream, kind of written all over it. We'll see whether I'm right about that one, or I've been wrong about these things, but I think that, like, I can see how this would have both like broad appeal, but also like for the heads, I think it goes hard enough that I think that it'll please a lot of
I hope you guys are writing all this down. Definitely. I know I
people.
have a little notepad here for sure.
And like, so that one, another one was Canadian one that I really like that I think most people are not going to dig, is one called Dead Lover, that
Okay.
is made by a woman named Grace Glowacki, who I think it's her debut as a director. I'm not. Oh, no, no, no! She did that other movie, Tito. It's her first horror movie though, and I mean, it's almost difficult to call it a horror movie because it's like this. It's all like this like hyper stylized like kind of arts and crafts style filmmaking, like it's very low budget. She plays a gravedigger in it in like kind of like Halloween Alley level makeup. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. That makes it sound like the makeup's no good, but it's just like very makeup-y makeup. It looks like a Halloween party all the time.
Okay.
All the characters in it are like stylized to the point that like everyone's really, really costumey. And she's like kind of fourth wall breaking constantly and talking to the audience about how she's trying to find like the love of her life. And it's got kind of like it's difficult to talk about it and not talk about John Waters a little bit because it's got a lot of bad taste in it,
Hmm.
but it also ripped off the polyester they call it, I think they call it Stinkorama for this one, but it was the, what was polyester had the, the scratch and sniff cards.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't remember what they called it, but they did that for this as well. And so it's very like sense oriented, like everybody's really gross looking and all of these things happen where you're supposed to do scratch and sniff and like some of them are like ghost puke. And
Ugh.
like it's a gross movie. I really enjoyed it and I actually have like historically I've seen Grace Goecki as an actor and a lot of other things and I think she's good, but I've not enjoyed her this much up to this point, and I was really like quite taken with the movie. I thought it was like it's really silly, but it was like it's not. I think it's way too weird and off-putting to be for normal people, which felt like very at home for me. It kind of fits. It's a perfect midnighter, I think.
Okay.
And even without the scratch and sniff stuff, I think like like take the gimmicks out, it's it's like it's a really like just the style of it. It reminds me more of like I can't think of a lot of movies that are like actually popular enough to reference that anyone like it is uniquely Canadian, honestly, because we have stuff like do you know it? Do you know Guy Madden's work at all?
I'm familiar with the name, but I don't think I've ever seen anything by him though.
Well, again, like Guy Madden, it's not like his stuff is like low budget necessarily. Like, and he works with like huge hitters. He works with like Udo Kier and like a lot of genre people, Isabella Rossellini. Like, he's a very well respected director, but his stuff has an intentionally, I keep referring to it as arts and crafts style, like very artificial looking.
Hmm.
All the sets don't look like real places. They look, you can see they're like, like acrylic paint all over everything. Like, if there's supposed to be a window there, but they didn't bother wanting to construct one, they'll just paint one, like that type of thing. Like, it's just got like a very uh, and in the case of Dead Lover, very like haunted house looking, like almost like a high school level, like, spook house type vibe to it, which I love that aesthetic. So I was more than happy to be in that for 90 minutes to have people tell me a bunch of like gross body function jokes and this weird thing about this finger that won't stop growing out of like a flower pot and all sorts of weird body horror bullshit. And the actual plot is just like kind of sort of nonsense, but the aesthetic and the absurdity of it, which absurdity is a tough sell on me in general. So I'm kind of more surprised how much I liked it, if I'm being honest. But that one I was really quite enamored with. I don't know how easy it is going to be to get a hold of. I think Yellow Veil picked it up for
Oh, cool.
distribution,
Yeah, that this should be
so
around then. Yeah.
it should be. I don't know how much it's going to screen. But I mean, in the streaming market though, it should be easy enough to get a hold of. I
Yeah.
think it's worth watching. I think a lot of people are going to find it really obnoxious, but I liked it a lot.
Yeah. If Yellow Veil is distributing it, it'll probably show up on like Shutter or something like that. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Another one that I liked a lot, and I think that it might end up getting. I think Neon has it, so I think it has a shot at getting seen, but it might be kind of buried in conversation as a movie called Exit 8. Have you heard anything about that one?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay, so there's a lot about this to not be excited about, and I thought in execution, I thought it was really good. It's based on a video game that I don't know anything about.
Okay. I don't know
And
anything about most video games. I'm not
yeah,
much of a
no,
gamer.
yeah, me neither. And so I don't really like, I don't have an opinion on like what it is as an adaptation. Maybe if you played the video game, you'd think it was very bad. I don't know. But it has kind of, as I understand it, it has its roots in what's referred to as back rooms. Do you know anything about back
Hmm.
rooms?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they're about to do a backrooms movie, right?
That
They're
I
like,
actually heard of. I heard of that. Yes.
well, so I think the video game was kind of made in the um uh originally kind of in within the like public excitement of this backrooms phenomenon. And so basically what it is we're watching this guy, and it looks almost like it's going to be a first person movie, but it breaks off from this. We're watching this guy on a subway train having a conversation with his girlfriend on his phone, and they're kind of arguing. There's like a situation, like there's kind of a pregnancy situation going on. He's in the middle of having a very intense time in his life, and he is trying to figure out which platform he's going to take, in terms of making some decisions with his life. And then he enters, he's just going through this underground train station, and then he starts realizing he's like in a loop, in a very short loop. And so he has to slow down and read a series of like prompts on the wall for him to figure out how to get out when he like kind of like he realizes that something's not quite right, and there's a series of like very particular like clues and things that he needs to follow, which sounds a little too video gamey out loud. Like I haven't really talked about it out loud since I saw it. And to me, I kind of feel like I know how that sounds, because that sounds like, like it's instructions. It's like reading an instruction manual. But then once you kind of fall into the logic of the movie, and it's him trying to solve his way through a series of very like kind of creepy reoccurring things. Like he keeps walking past, like the way he realizes that things aren't right is he keeps on going down what appears to be the same corridor, and he keeps walking
Yeah.
past the same man.
Right.
And when he starts realizing that things aren't quite right, things start reacting to him differently in a way that is really alarming. And I thought it worked really well. It didn't overstay its welcome, which I think is always a good thing. A movie like this is really, if they want me to watch this for any more than like 85 minutes, they better, make it whip smart. And again, without having played the video game, I don't have a strong opinion about it as an adaptation. As just a cinematic experience, though, I thought it was really, really good, and I thought it was like really clever filmmaking. They talked about it as a Q&A afterwards. That's another thing, you get to see some of the filmmaker Q&As at these types of festivals, and talking about how they accomplished it was like more um practical than you would anticipate for a thing that's like a series of reoccurring hallways that kind of never ends. You would presume there's, there are computers at work, but it was more complicated than that and really smart. I thought that again, it doesn't sound that enticing out loud. I think in execution, it was really cool. And I think that having endless resources, which I think the Backrooms movie that they're talking about making, I think is more of a big budget thing. I think that doing it smaller and smarter is probably like feeds into this type of idea a little bit better. So I'm curious to see how like a bigger budget, probably North American version is going to handle the same concept.
Yeah, the backroom stuff, from what I know about it, it's like has more to do with like liminal spaces and like emptiness and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I know that's what I don't know much about that, but I know there's like this dude like Pixels, Kane Pixels, I think his name is, or something like that. That has got something to do with it, and that it came out of 4chan,
Yeah.
the same shadowy internet corner that brought us the Groypers and the Order of Nine Angles.
Well,
And
see, and that's just it. Like on paper, that's never appetizing to me when I hear like, oh, this was a, what do they call it? A creepy pasta. I go like,
yeah,
really? We're doing that? But I mean, some of the stuff's all right. Like what was that
yeah.
Candle Cove? What was that
Oh yeah,
TV show?
Candle Cove on yeah, the creepypasta that was made into Channel Zero.
Channel Zero. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
That
stuff's
like
cool. Yeah.
it's really cool. So like I mean, I've been wrong about this before, and I've been like being like an old guy griping about people taking their ideas from the internet. I mean, you kind of don't want to take anything from 4chan in a lot of ways if you're an adult.
No.
But like I mean, there's been great stuff has come as a result of that. And like I mean, I do think that like the economy that needs to take place in order to hold someone's attention on a ostensibly a message board post, like, I mean, you do have to have a really good key idea or no one's going to pay attention to it. So it kind of makes sense that some of that stuff pops.
Well, there's like a whole world of younger people making films. It's like the guy who did Skinamarink, whose name is
Yeah.
escaping me right now. He's a young man. The Bell,
Yes,
his
he
last name is
is.
Bell at Ball or Bell, something like that.
I don't remember. I don't know that we talked about that. Where were you at with Skinamarink?
That was my favorite record. My favorite movie of the year came out.
Oh, you're one of those. See, like, because you know then better than anyone because you've probably done a lot of defending of it, like just how divisive that was.
Yeah, I mean, I would
And
never recommend that to anyone. You know what I mean?
no,
I would be like, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, Kyle Edward Ball, that was a dude's name. Yeah, because it
okay, there
was
you go.
what back when it came out in 2022. That was on Necromaniacs. That was my movie, like number one, Splot.
Maybe I did know that because I think I listened to that
Yeah.
episode now. Yeah, that's coming back to me now because he's from Edmonton. Eh?
Oh, okay, Canadian.
He's one province over from me. That's
Right
actually
on.
like that's I mean compared to most places, hop, skip, and a jump away from where I'm at. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that like that movie was so uniquely directed towards somebody that if you had recognition in there someplace. Like me and my wife were talking about that a lot after we watched it and having a sense of kind of like I think like especially if you were a latchkey kid and were ever in situations where like you were feeling a little bit of like kind of just like uh discomfort and this sensation of kind of like this almost like canine sense of I don't know if anyone's ever coming home ever again.
Yeah, totally.
Like
Like
all of
those.
that stuff. Oh,
Yeah,
man, does it
that's
ever
like
tap into something?
that. It's some like very distant fear, almost
Mm.
instinctual fear that that movie connects to. And you if you got to pay attention. That's the thing, in a movie like
Yeah.
that. And I mean, you have to go into like a trance almost to get into it, and I don't it's better to watch it by yourself. You can't watch it with like someone who's going to talk to you during it or something like that. And
No, and you know what? I feel like I'm lucky because again, the person I watched it with was somebody who was kind of fell into that trance as much as I did. Like there was
yeah.
nothing, we didn't have anything that we had to say about it. And then unpacking it later, like I mean, my wife and I, we've been together since we were kids. Like we've
Oh,
been
good.
like
Awesome.
yeah, we've been together since 2001. We were in high school or whatever, and we I think like kind of like in discussing it afterwards like found stuff out about each other we didn't know, just more like less about like information and more about like like the way you felt as a child about certain things or whatever, which
Absolutely.
like so like we could kind of I even got to bond over it a bit, which is pretty
Yeah, dude. So that sounds cool to me.
cool.
So,
Yeah.
definitely.
But yeah, no, I think that there's lots to be said for like finding. I think like people like us who have been doing this type of movie for so many years, do invested in this style of the in this corner of the market. We need to be open to what it is that like because it doesn't always take with me either, right? Like on the other hand, like for that age demo. Skinamarink, I think, like your next movie over for most people, that is the movie that worked for them. It winds up being I saw the TV Glow, which didn't work for me at all.
Yeah, I didn't care for
And
that one.
no, like and I know what my major issues with the and actually the director's prior movie I didn't really love either. Um, and I think that it's interesting, but I don't think that I didn't like it because I like went in with a closed mind or anything like that. I think the things it was trying to do were really interesting and really compelling. I just didn't like it as a whole. It just didn't do anything for me. But I know from talking to enough people who are much younger than I am that it moved a lot of people. So I'm happy it exists, but we just need to be prepared. Like as much as like I'm ready to like kick everything out that like I just said like I don't want to take anything that comes from 4chan too seriously, but like I'm kind of half joking because I think that just because it's a delivery system that I'm not used to doesn't mean that there's valuable stuff going on and I like to be wrong. It
Yeah.
means I'm surprised by something, right? So
Well, I'm really excited about some of these younger people making these films because there's a whole the interesting thing about it is there's like this analog nostalgia
mhm.
that most of these filmmakers are too young to really have experienced firsthand. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you're 20 years old, you're not going to know about the 80s. You know what I mean? That's going to
right.
be like not part of your existence. You don't have memories that go there, and
Well,
like a
see,
lot of
even
like this
most
kind of analog VHS culture and like, mechanical stuff that, is not in the consciousness of people who are like, 20 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I can understand why because I mean even me like I only spent so much of my like really cognizant time in the 80s. I don't remember like I was young enough that I don't remember a shitload about it, but I mean that was where my a lot of my like kind of desire drive was being formed because I was a young kid who wanted I always was attracted to horror stuff in the horror
Yeah.
section. I always wanted a piece of it.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I did when I was a kid, like I just, like we didn't have a ton of money growing up. I would just go hang out in the video store and look at videos that I didn't have the money to rent and wasn't old enough to rent. That was what I would do to keep myself, occupied. So, I mean, I know the fascination of picking those pieces up. Like, I know what it is for those things to be ephemera, and I appreciate it a lot. And I do think they're cool. I do think that there's something of like, uh, you know, there's something a little bit more exciting about evoking those stories via like a mechanical piece than there is to be, bringing it up on Tubi. I mean, as much as like I think that having the ability to call on those things whenever you need them is awesome. I'm not saying that Tubi's a problem. Well, Tubi's a problem in a lot of ways, but not like that. But I do understand why a younger generation who didn't grow up with like watching the tracking struggle its way through that first 10 seconds, like why they get such a huge kick out of that and everything like that, because I'm
Yeah.
still excited about it too, so I do understand it. um but also I'm still living it to a degree. I'm sitting next to a bunch of VHS. Like I still, some of this stuff is like, and I'm not somebody who like I don't think I privately over fetishize any format of anything, but like some of the movies that I have my hands on are movies that I haven't been able to find a better copy. So I still have my VHS copies, and I always need a VCR because if I'm ever going to watch movie X, this is the only way I'm going to be able to do it, right? Like these things, I'm happy to have the ability to still be able to watch these things.
Yeah, but some of these filmmakers like Kyle Ball, like there's this whole like movement. It's called analog horror, and they all have like just it all only exists like on YouTube. And there's like let's see, there's the Mandela catalog, which is the first one to come to mind. And
Oh,
they the aesthetic of their film of their projects are all analog stuff from like the 80s, and these kids are like 22 years old. You know what I mean? It's like such a odd aesthetic to have in their films, and they're not like linear narratives either. It's
no,
done.
they kind of resemble art pieces a little bit more in a
Yeah,
lot of
and
ways.
I'm really into these things. They're cool, and like they're all like episodic, and they're like 5 minutes long or 3 minutes long, and they're just super creepy too because they just connect in a different way, and that's what Ball was part of. It was he came out of that whole um, scene. And yeah, so I mean, the one that I spent the most time watching was the Mandela catalog. That has to
Oh,
do with like some conspiracies and even stuff that's like more from like, conspiracies are big in like the 80s and the 90s. Like even that subject matter is something that, these guys didn't really catch that the first time around. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's actually, I mean, and probably prescient right now I mean, without like turning, whatever too political or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, conspiracy encroaching on like your daily life is something that I do think that like that everyone is experiencing that sensation, whether whether they're inventing it or whether they're not. That I'm I won't there's no point in unpacking that. I don't think right now, but like I think that that's in the air, and so the sensation of like kind of conspiracy is something that I think is relatable right now.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, just it's just cool, and I'm excited to see more filmmakers like make feature-length films and get them released in the theaters that are coming from that world.
Yeah, well, and especially something like Skinamarink because and again, like I mean, it's nice I'm glad that you also enjoyed it because like I don't have to relitigate whether it was worth being a full length movie or not because I think that that's To me, that's unquestionable. I think that the entirety of the ride is as opposed to the more smaller chunks and more episodic chunks. Because I definitely know that some of the people who I think really heavily disliked it, but were feeling more forgiving, were like, well, maybe this would have been okay if it was 5 minutes, but why is it the
Nah,
entire ride? And I mean,
yeah,
I can't agree with that at all, but I do think that like the case to be made would be that it should have been that. But I think that that movie was proof that those films have potential to be a feature length experience.
yeah, totally. I mean, like I said, I can't recommend that movie to anyone. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
unless it's like someone like you or, someone who I know will, I'm not even going to say they get it, but how it's like the background to appreciate it. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm going to listen to like, Merzbow or something like that, I'm not going to recommend them to someone who doesn't have a background in that type of, music. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the big thing is like I think you kind of nailed it there because it's just more formal, uh, kind of recognized ways of storytelling, and also which would factor into to songs as well, right? It's are you telling me a story, or are you painting a mood? And I think that there's only so many people that have the constitution to not spend time with formally constructed recognizable things because they feel uncomfortable about them. And like that's not to say like you have to be that you're a special person if you can wrap your head around noise music or less formal storytelling, less formal like films. But I do think that it takes a I don't think you get to being able to digest a movie like Skinamarink unless you've spent a little bit of time with less formal work, right? Like too many people dove into that thing. I mean, we saw that even with movies like even like The Witch,
Yeah.
where they
Hmm.
they directed that towards a mainstream audience who are used to a very, very particular form, a very particular uh, way of telling stories. And that movie should not have been, a huge task for most people. It's still a story, but
Yeah.
it was recognizable enough to a mainstream audience that a lot of people really struggled with it, and blah blah blah. Can you like Skinamarink was pitched the same way? It was kind of pitched as though it was maybe kind of sort of for everyone, or it comes with that challenge of like, well, this might not be for everyone, and everybody thinks they like you know everything. Everyone says, oh, I like all kinds of music, I like all kinds of this, I like all kinds of that. And so when they hear someone say, well, this might not be for you, they hear that as a challenge and not as
Yeah.
an actual warning. And I think that's what happened with that movie, which I think that it got so many more eyes on it as a result. So I think that it was worth it. And like it's a tired conversation about like I don't need to hear anyone complain about how that movie was boring ever again in my life. Like what a dull take. Who gives a shit? Like that this wasn't for you. But I do think that like, you also typically, not always, but typically you don't dive into listening to like wall of noise style music unless you've been acclimated to it, right?
Exactly. And that's the point, and it's like, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like it depends. I'm selective about who I would have recommended that to.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're, and I'm not judging anyone either. I'm just like, all
No,
right,
no, no,
cool.
no, no.
It's like not for you. It's great. That's certain things aren't for me either, but like, yeah, it's such a fascinating thing to happen, and I want to hear more about him. And I want more work by this guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I'm excited because I'd like to think that at some point in time, we were, I think, really undervalued. Like the first time we had Skinamarink, because we ran Skinamarink at my theater as part of a festival. And at the time, I don't think anyone was ready for what that movie was going to do and how much conversation was going to be surrounding that movie. And honestly, I think the first time we ran it, it was early enough into its life cycle that it probably wouldn't have been worth it to bring him in for it. It might have been, it might like it might have been kind of in the middle of winter and everything like that. I don't know if we were, quite ready to have like a big, it would have been more like, oh, I can't believe I missed that thing you guys did 6 months ago before this movie really got cooking. But I'd like to hope that whatever he does next is such that we can maybe convince him to, if he's still in Edmonton anyway, like, I mean, it's like 5-6 hour drive or something like that. So it's a tenable, like, it's so hard to get guests out for the festivals and things like that that we do at our venue, that I'd like to see if we could lure him down.
Yeah, that'd be great, man.
Yeah.
But Scott, thanks for spending time with us this evening. It was awesome hearing about all this stuff, and I'm really, really excited about your endeavors with Steve Austin and Today's a Day. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, hey, like I said, I'm all in on coming back on at some point and seeing how it all goes. And again, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting on details right now, but so I get to be mainly excited about it, less daunted by it
Oh yeah.
currently.
Well, I'm excited. So, all right. Once again, thanks for being on as a guest, and thank you guys for listening. Take care.